Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, and today we are live after a few technical difficulties, touche YouTube, to chat with you about the upcoming month, the outgoing one, the new season, whatever you all want. So let's do it. All right. Well, happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to our monthly, or I guess vaguely monthly, live show that we do. I will let you all trickle in and kind of populate there. And as you come in, start to get some of your questions into the chat, and Mike will shoot those over to me. And he is in the chat too. You can say hi to Mike and, ask him how he's doing, because his kids are also out of school today, as our kids are for the, 8th day in a row of school days. So that's fun. Yeah, lots of, the ice has done quite a number on Kentucky. It's not that bad, but it's just not going anywhere because it doesn't get above freezing. But while we wait for you all to get up and running, get your questions in, all those sorts of things, I will do a quick ad read here from our friend over at Blake at from our friend Blake over at Peaceful Heritage Farm. If you're looking for hardy and resilient fruit trees, berry plants, or pawpaw trees, then check out Peaceful Heritage Nursery. Peaceful Heritage Nursery, LLC, is a mail-order nursery shipping premium quality fruit trees and berry plants across the USA. They specialize in resilient, non-GMO plant genetics for small growers. Their diverse selection includes berries, cold hardy figs, passion fruit, gumi, mulberry, and much more. They're famous for their diverse selection of premium quality grafted pawpaw trees. 5-star Google ratings and customer testimonies attest to their commitment to excellence in quality and service. Find them at peacefulheritage.com and join the mailing list. Once again, find them at peacefulheritage.com. Use the promo code NOTILL, that's NOTILL, you'd think I'd know how to spell it at this point, for 10% off of your first order at peacefulheritage.com. Big shouts to Blake for their support. And, you can watch some of the videos we did with Blake at Peaceful Heritage there if you go back in the archives a little bit. And maybe if Mike gets a chance, he'll throw one or two of those up there for you to click on. What we'll do is, as you all trickle in, you all get your questions in here, and then we will, I'll try and answer as many as I can over the next hour-ish. And we'll have fun. I know there was a couple questions in the other chat that we started before this, but so you will have to put those back in here just so that we actually see them. And how's everybody doing? It's been like I said, the kids have been out of school for it's like a week and a half now. Theoretically, they'll go back tomorrow. But the challenge with Kentucky is, like, we're just not built for snow. Like, we can handle a little bit of it, and we have it built into our schedule. Like, kids miss every year for a little bit of snow or whatever. But, like, this year has been wild. Like, it was so cold in December. They missed days in maybe even November, but they, like, rarely miss any at the beginning of the season, like in the first half of the semester, or the first semester. And this year they missed some then, and then they've missed obviously like a week and a half now. So they'll probably be going to school until they start school next year. At this point, they'll probably have to add some days on. So that should be fun. Anyway, let's see what we got going on here. Yeah, it looks like some questions coming in. Good. It has not been heat. I see somebody said it's a heat wave there in Minnesota. It's not been a heat wave here. It's been quite the opposite. It's been like barely above freezing for since we got all that ice and snow, last 2 weeks ago. And, it's fun. Like, I like having some snow around. I like that Kentucky actually has something we can work with. The kids have been like sledding and stuff, which, we don't usually get to do here. I grew up in Colorado. That's like where I was born. So I did a lot of snowboarding and loved, I spent a lot of time out in the snow, but we just don't really have that here. We just have mud. It's like mud season. So, arguably Kentucky, I love it it's got probably one of the best springs, probably one of the best falls, probably the worst winter, just the most boring, not great winters. Anyway, but our summers are all right. They're not as hot as some of the other, humid places in our region, but yeah. So let's see. Mike's going to shoot me questions. Awesome. All right. So we'll kick it off. At La Ferme Maraîchère Peto. I don't know. They're all kind of mixed together there, but probably got some of that. La Ferme. Did you already start your season? Well, sort of. We started our peppers I've got some carrots in the ground sown. I've got some in the tunnel, rather. We don't sow our field carrots until March. But I've got some peppers started. I'm going to start some tomatoes this week. But the problem is all of our soil mix is frozen solid. Like it's really difficult when it doesn't get above freezing here because it's just like there's not much we can do. So usually I would have started our tomatoes last week, which was my goal this year. But this year I'm going to have to start them in the house. Probably, and then also get them going a little faster than I normally do, which is fine because we're going to graft them and try and get them in by late March. I'm hoping for this season, but we'll just see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we've kind of started our season in terms of like production, but it's more like prepping right now. We're going to start starting seeds. We've got some lettuce and onions. Obviously, those are already started as well. We will be starting, like those tomatoes, like I said, handful of other things, probably more lettuce here soon. Spinach, we got to get that started pretty soon again. We've got some of that that we direct seeded that's come up pretty nicely. We'll see. It should have fared fine through all those cold days, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at on our season. It's not doesn't really kick on till really February and March. Like once we get deep into these next 2 months, like that's when it really starts to pop off. So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I don't think I have a whole lot else going on. And then obviously nothing in the fields. It's like a solid sheet of ice. But soon enough, very, very excited about that. At Riggin Farm asks, we put in high tunnels last year, but we got a very late start into the season. Any tunnel tips going into this growing season? Last year, it got up to 115 degrees. We have 5-foot roll-up sides and no ridge vents. Oh, yeah, that's tough. I mean, the ridge vent, like we had tunnels that didn't have ridge vents before, but they were kind of nice because they were somewhat on a hill. Like it wasn't like a perfectly flat space. So it actually, the way that it worked, it like the hot air moves up. So basically like all the hot air would kind of go out the top of it, and it would kind of cool it off, sort of naturally. So we had the sides all the way up. We didn't have ridge vents on there. But yeah, keeping the sides all the way up and the doors all the way open is a huge part. You can cool it off a little bit with like shade cloth. That certainly helps. And if it's going to be that hot, you may need to think about some sort of ventilation at the top, like even just putting in some of those fans that go on either end and draw the heat through the top. Those, then you'd have to deal with electricity and all that stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, there's not much that's going to enjoy being in 115 degree heat, and ventilation just is a wildly important part of tunnel production. So yeah, I mean, it also depends on the size of the tunnel. The bigger tunnels can be a little, obviously, like harder to cool. But it doesn't really matter if the structure is, holds all that heat both on the ends and on the top. Then it's just going to stay hot. That's brutal. Any tips? Let's say you said any tunnel tips going into this growing season. Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk, I think probably in like the next month, we'll talk a little bit about like crop steering stuff that you can sort of do, like lo-fi versions of that. We'll talk about when you need to cover stuff in the tunnel. But for the most part, like tunnels are just give you, just think of everything like a month ahead of time, really. And it takes you a month longer. So like you just get a month on either end extension of your season. And if you throw row cover into that, maybe you get a few more weeks that way. And sometimes, I mean, you can get it also just in the middle of the winter, like it's just keeping stuff off of your plants, like physically the wind's not beating them, the snow's not smashing them, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about tunnels, I think in the coming weeks, but yeah, 115 degrees is brutal. At Shawnee Grows asks, Shawnee Grows, I think that's right, asks, are you looking at any webinars, classes, or learning opportunities for yourself this year? Curious if there's anything you want to learn deeper about. Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually kind of on an adventure this morning, just looking at different things like that. I have studied farming for like 16 years now, and I read nothing but farming books. So I'm always trying to find stuff that, is somewhat adjacent to or complementary of the farming information I already know, and how to utilize it better, how to utilize it more effectively, how to teach it better, how to even just look at what like making an impact, like how do I make it effective for you all? I don't know. It's kind of vague, but that's the sort of thing, like just I want like a retooling of how I look at the world, how I look at society, how I look at farming, and just have different perspectives. So that's kind of something I've been tinkering with, that thought, and it's not a complete thought, but that's something. I mean, obviously, like soccer coaching, I'm always trying to get better at soccer coaching. That's something that I do in my spare time quite a lot, and we'll be doing here soon. In about a month, we'll start our soccer practices and stuff. And then, agroecology, any sort of ecological management. I'm really big into, Hannah and I were talking about this morning, just this idea of people as like taking the importance that we put on being rich or being famous or any of those sorts of things, and putting it on like the impact you have. Like, wealth is not about what you have, it's about what you do. That's kind of like always been my sort of mantra. And so like, that's something that I'm trying to focus my efforts on, is thinking about like how to, effectively describe that to people and get people inspired by this idea of like, we have to stop looking at like yachts and these sort of ridiculous things that people want as wealth or important or anything but like kind of embarrassing, and focus that effort on like, solving, I don't know, people like having huge ecological impacts that are positive and those sorts of things. So I don't know, that's kind of where my brain is at right now. So yeah, I don't know that I have a specific class or webinar that I'm looking at in that regard, but I did order a couple books from, Bergman. What is his name? Just had it up, but anyway, there's I forget his name, but yeah, there's a guy that did a talk at Davos about like about taxes and about people flying in from Davos, like 1,500 planes flying in from Davos flying into Davos for this talk that, they were like, and he was like, you all just flew in here to hear David Attenborough tell you like you're ruining the planet. Like there's a huge disconnect here, right? So I don't know, that sort of stuff. That's kind of where my brain is at. I don't know if that's helpful, but or if that answers your question. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about more and more lately. So thank you. That's a good question. And if I come up with other ones though too, if anything more farm related, I'll let you all know. At Excel101 asks, does Verbruggen have to do better on that last second goal? Bad rebound to give up? No, the defense has to do better. Verbruggen is amazing. He's like 23 years old. He's almost faultless. He rarely makes a mistake. And I think that shot came in really hard, but there were 3 mistakes if you go back and watch that sequence where like, I don't know what Brighton fought over the ball at one point. Nobody took ownership of it. They just had a poor clearance. I don't know what they were doing. They just gave up there at the last minute. It was very heartbreaking. But no, Verbruggen's going to end up going to, some big club here soon. And it's going to be depressing because he's amazing. At Stephanie Rowe asks, question, have you used coarse sand to help to improve heavy clay soils to improve drainage? I have not. I've heard some mixed reviews about doing it that way. I think you can. I don't know. I also have kind of mixed feelings about moving, heavy soil particles around, even sand and that sort of stuff. Like sand is a huge moving sand around is a huge problem in the world right now, and just sand usage in general, and like beaches and stuff. Like it's a big thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's something that I would necessarily do. And honestly, like a lot of times, what it's really missing is just, organic matter. So like taking a waste stream, rather something like compost, or even just taking your time a little bit more with like building soil organic matter through cover crop usage, growing lots of plants and that sort of stuff, or just gearing your plants around it, I think is really important. I was talking to somebody this weekend about clay and, how it's just something that like I've worked on really good soils. I've worked on kind of mediocre soils, and I've worked on clay soils. And the biggest difference to me isn't necessarily like how difficult they are or like how frustrating. It's just how long their timetable is for how long they take to sort of repair and get back to that sort of fluffy medium that you hope for, that we, as no-till growers sort of have grown to expect. Like we put a bunch of compost down, we grow lots of plants, we grow cover crops, all these things. And like, over time in good soil, like you start to feel it, like you can reach your hand deep into the soil. In clay, it's like you get there, it just takes longer. So that's kind of the thing. It's more of a timeline thing. And fixing drainage, I mean, is a whole other conversation. I think I kind of had fun with that a little bit when we were talking about wetlands, a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago. Just this idea of like where we're putting our gardens matters, how far you raise them up. Like having nice, healthy, large raised beds, I think is really important. So yeah, I mean, those are the, I in terms of sands, I mean, you could try it, I guess, but like, that's not where my brain goes. I think just like, uh, appropriate crops for the area, for the timing, for the moisture levels, working on that soil organic matter and just getting organic matter into your soil. And then maybe just finding ways to gently move the water away from your garden without doing like heavy drainage style and that sort of stuff. That's preferable. But yeah. I mean, you could, I don't know. I've not really looked at studies or anything on it, but my understanding is that it isn't quite as effective also as people think it is. Unless you did a bunch of it, then I guess you're just changing your soil type. But no, it's a good question. I think it's fascinating. At brackets, petals, and produce asks how much government involvement comes with getting a high tunnel through the USDA grant. Almost none. Oh my goodness. Okay, so they do the NRCS EKIP grant. Basically, or it has been, right? I haven't done this in a few years. Like we got one. I don't even think we've got one for this new farm. Is that right? I don't think we've got one for the new farm. And not because I don't think it's a good program, but like we already had 2 tunnels. We had a big tunnel that we got through Rimmel. And so like we didn't really need another tunnel. And I felt like just let other people have those funds since we used them for our other farm. But yeah, like it's not anything at all. They take like a site assessment. And then I want to say they try and, like when they were there, they were like, oh, you could also add a gutter system. Do you want us to put you in, down for that? And then we could also do like, a planting of pollinator habitat. Do you want us to do that? Like they're asking, like the NRCS is all about like natural resource conservation, right? So they're just like, they're trying to figure out how much more they can help you. Do you need fencing? Do you need this, that? So it was more like they were trying to add more stuff for me rather than just do the one thing I wanted them to do. But then after it was built, I think they came and checked it out, and then they just wanted the receipts, and that was the last I saw of them. And then we did that. We built 3 tunnels through an NRCS grant on our last farm. And yeah, I think I never even heard back from them at all. So that's it. I think there is a concern sometimes when people are like, and I have this concern about grants is just like a lot of times grants they're never free money. Like they're almost always like a ton of work. The NRCS EQIP grant is the least amount of work of any grant that I've been involved with. They're basically like, they want you to build the tunnel. They want to make sure it was built. Then after that, they're kind of like out. And unless other people have had experience with different experiences, and maybe that's happened, but in our experience, it's been really hands off. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully. At Lexington Max with 2 X's writes, my compost pile is cold and will probably stay cold until the late spring. Should I keep turning it when I get a chance or just leave it till the spring thaw? Should I add more kitchen waste or wait? I mean, you could. I don't think turning it's really going to do anything for you unless your nitrogen's kind of balanced out in there enough to get started. What I would probably do is kind of collect, like you said, kitchen waste and all that stuff. You can still add that to it. But what's going to happen, it just depends on your carbon to nitrogen ratio. Like at a certain point, it's going to be really hard to heat up until you get a lot more nitrogen back in there and then add a little bit more carbon to sort of balance it out. So if you can do a bunch of that all at once and then do a good turn, like get it started in the middle of the pile, then do a good turn, it'll kind of restart. But sometimes just adding a little bit, it'll maybe just get hot right in the middle of that little bit of like, what we'll do is we'll often add a bucket of like our food scraps or whatever. So we'll pour that right in the middle, have that be, it'll heat up a little bit, but usually like if you can add a couple buckets or something at one time into a big pile and then kind of, let that get heated for a day or two and then sort of stir that together maybe with some wood chips or something, then you can get a nice warm pile again. And yeah, you can wait until the spring if you want to, but it depends on your temperatures. Like here, I would probably wait because literally everything is frozen, but you don't have to necessarily. You could go with like just you could do it right now, probably just depending on your temperatures and stuff. And if you get enough nitrogen in there, like it will go in really cold temperatures. Like there are composters in Alaska, and you can ask Jane up in Rhode Island. Like there are, people compost in some pretty cold situations, and it stays nice and warm. Let's see. Yeah, thank you. Good question. All right, let's see. At Jeremy asks, what's the best way to sterilize soil that got left outside in the garage and it's frozen? Sterilize it. I'm not sure. I guess maybe Jeremy, you could elaborate a little bit what the goal with sterilizing it would be. I don't know if it would be necessary. Like if it's got left outside and it got frozen, then you probably did a little sterilization there. And if you needed to, like if you were afraid it was contaminated with some, like you grew some tomatoes in it or something that had some blight last year or something, you can wrap that in like, you could put it in a bag, like a garbage bag, and put it in the sun for a couple days, and that will pretty much do it. If you needed to, if you felt like there was a specific disease issue there, but if it's just like, soil mix that you bought in a bag or something, I don't know that I'd be too concerned with it. But usually the sun's a great sanitizer, and if you could get that, just to throw it in a garbage bag or something if you need to, and then let it sanitize that way, or put it in your tunnel and your greenhouse or something and shut the doors. I'd probably do a pretty good number on it. You wouldn't have to do much else than that, I would think. Good question. At SR Broad asks question, mushrooms are coming up in my tilth seed starter. Any issue? No, that's probably a good thing, right? Like it means you got fungi in there. There's no mushroom that I would be like, that one is going to hurt my plants. It's usually like, usually like maybe if it was super mossy, maybe, but even that, not really. Like if you mix it up, just break it up and get it going again. Sometimes you can get kind of biofilms and stuff on the top, just depending on how long it's really in the soil blocks or seed starter or whatever. But no, I don't see any major issues with that. In fact, I don't know. I kind of think any of that life that you see is, especially if it's like you actually see the fruit of a mushroom, like that sounds fine to me. Probably wouldn't eat it. I don't know what the mushroom is, but yeah, probably not going to hurt anything. Forgive me, I'm take a drink of water. Do tomatoes need darkness to flower? Asks at Jorge GTZ. I don't think so. I mean, not that I'm aware of. I think that they need some elements of darkness. Do they even need darkness at all? I don't think so. No. I mean, you have people who grow tomatoes in places that are basically never get dark, but I think it does add, I guess that's a good question because, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Maybe somebody else has some good insight on that. I don't think so. I mean, it's certainly, they're big nightshades. They do put on a little production over the nighttime, but I don't think it has anything to necessarily do with the flowering. Could be wrong about that though. Somebody feel free to let us know. That's like a good horticultural. Sometimes I love talking to horticulturalists because they have those important little details about the physiology of plants that maybe I don't know or have forgotten. But yeah, good question. It's fun. At Justin Kabinick writes, how do you factor in days to maturity on seed packets when planting succession crops? Does that assume perfect growing conditions, regular feedings? How exact do you find that when it's listed? How exact? It's never exact because that is perfect growing conditions at the peak of season. The only way to get that perfectly accurate is do several years of records. And that way, it took roughly, 30 days to grow this radish in April of this year. The next year it took roughly 28 days. The next year it took roughly 31 days. That way, it's just going to take you about 29 days. Being exact with farming is super difficult unless you control every single condition and you just, and then you're not really farming, right? Like you're having to build a factory with lights and all those things. So anytime you're dealing with the soil and, sunlight and clouds and water and all these things that can change, it's never going to be exactly perfect. Plan you're always going to have to be pulling some audibles, doing some amount of like, this crop's ready about a few days or a week even earlier than I thought, or a week later than I thought. It's not coming along as well. Like a few years ago, this would have been 23. Was it 23 or 22 when we had all those Canadian wildfires? But anyway, we had all the huge, I know that happened last year and the year before, I think, but this was like the first year of it was really bad. And we had all the smoke coming down from Canada for like May and June. And it was cool here, but there was like no sunlight. Nothing was growing very fast. And it threw off it was like if I was looking at, several years of data, I would have just thrown that year out because it was such an outlier. So you have to take into consideration those factors as well. Sometimes you're just like, okay, well, hey chefs, things are about 2 weeks behind. Sorry about that. So here's, and anybody who's working with a local farmer kind of has to just they grow to understand that that's just the nature of it, that you can't be absolutely perfect every season. But the more data that you have, smart data, some data that, that's helpful, you can take too much data, but the more data you have to work with, the better. And I don't, at this point, like I kind of know our routine, so I don't keep as much data as I started with. But, it matters more in situations where like you have orders than it does if you're doing, like farmer's market. Like if two radish bunches sort of overlap, then you have to find, additional ways to sell those radishes or whatever. But, I think that's it. I mean, keep as much data as you can for the longest period of time, and then, you slowly work off of that, and that'll help a lot. Good question. At Andre Fawn writes, question, thinking of mulching to build up the soil, what is your opinion about mulching at location that receives long and heavy rainfalls? Could there be any negatives in this context? Depends on the mulch that you're using. I mean, if you're, like for us, we get long, heavy rainfalls. It's very frustrating, but the mulches that work well in that situation are things like hay, straw, things that sort of lock themselves together, right? Cover crops. The mulches that don't work as well are things that can wash out, right? Like I find using wood chips in our climate completely worthless. They just any inside the tunnel, fine. But outside of the tunnel, they are just gonna, as it rains, they just kind of float and then they wash down the hill, especially because we're on a slope. If we weren't on a slope though, they just wash onto the beds. So, or compost, like it still protects the soil a little bit, but you'll lose compost in heavy rainfalls. Like it'll just, the water goes to the lowest point and it will run through whatever's standing in the way, especially if it can move it. And there have been times when we've had heavy rainfalls, and you can see the compost has stopped in the lower part of our garden where we often use hay, and you can see the compost is kind of like just gone over top and into the hay, which is, I guess, helpful in some ways. But yeah, we lost all that compost in those areas. So yeah, figuring that out. I mean, that's partially why we use those, living pathways. That helps to absorb some of that water and keep it from like rushing over the beds a little bit. Better drainage will help to keep that, stuff from washing out as well. Like if I was on sand or something, I probably wouldn't worry as much about the wood chip situation, right? Because like on clay, it just puddles up so quickly. But in like a sandy soil where it's going to drain really fast, I don't know that it would be as much of an issue. And maybe over time that would help build the soil organic matter that you want, having those wood chips down. So I don't know in that context, but it would be contextual. But yeah, that's been my experience in a very heavy rainfall environment. At Shawnee Grows asks, what cover crops or living pathway blends are you leaning towards this season? Any new blends or trials? The biggest thing that I want to work with more this season is teff. I had a lot of fun with that last year, but I didn't feel like I used it at the right times in the right ways. I'd also like to experiment more with putting some clover, just some like Dutch white clover or New Zealand white clover underneath of, like some of the field tomato plantings and stuff. I'd like to experiment a little bit more with that just as we're closing out the season, have a good living green cover there underneath of those plants. Teff, the challenge with that was that it was just kind of like, as it got hot and dry, it kind of went to seed earlier than I wanted it to. However, I really liked it in an area. I wish I could show you, but I'll show you at some point when the snow melts and stuff, but I had it over this area that I threw in with crimson clover. So I had this beautiful teff patch in the beds, and then crimson clover was kind of in the pathways and on the beds, but you couldn't really see the crimson clover. And then the teff died from a frost because it's not cold hardy, died from a frost, and now the crimson clover is sort of growing through that. So you have this like mulch over top. So like almost like a winter kill cover crop. You could maybe add it with like winter peas or something. So I'm going to tinker with that a little bit. Also, flax is a little bit on my mind. I'd like to play around a little bit with that as well, but I don't know if I'll quite get there with that this year. I just do too many things and don't take enough consideration in terms of like how to, like I don't follow the research element of it very well sometimes because I just am doing too many things. So yeah, that's kind of, those are the big ones. I'd also like to get another patch of chamomile going because I've been hammering the chamomile tea lately. And I don't know, save me a little money, grow some beautiful flowers, and maybe do that again in the fall. And I've got this little patch that I'm working on that I'm sort of planning for that, and then maybe also a little bit of asparagus, even though I don't know, it's just impossible for annual growers like us to keep up with asparagus in general. Not impossible, but it's just another thing to have to keep mulched and all that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. Those are kind of on my mind. At Dama Hub asks, hey Jesse, any experience with automatic compost spreaders or something along those lines? Spreading the annual layer has become quite a challenge as my beds are kind of, I'm assuming, spread out over the garden. Automatic. Oh, you mean probably like I don't know, like the BCS walk behind has one that you can just pour a bunch of compost into and it sort of spreads it like that instead of using wheelbarrows. That one worked pretty well when I saw it, when I saw that working. And I think I saw that at a event I did in Louisiana, and that was pretty cool. I think I've put videos up before of that. Very interesting little system. You still have to load it by hand or by like maybe a little tractor. And then we've used compost spreaders on various farms I've worked on, and those work really well. There's lots of different kinds of compost spreaders out there. Lots of stuff. There's actually like more, I guess, that work within the bucket. And basically you just load a bucket and it kind of spreads it for you. Any way you can reduce your labor without spending too much money, right? Like you got to figure out the balance there and do, enterprise budget and just figure out like, how am I going to spread that cost out throughout the rest of whatever I'm doing? But honestly, the labor of spreading compost is enormous. It's so much work. It's a good thing to be doing in the wintertime, unless it's like it is here right now where it's just ice and you can't spread compost really on ice, or dig into the icy compost. But yeah, it's a good winter project in milder areas, I guess. But yeah, it's, I get it. I feel you. It's tough. It depends on, how much space you're actually talking about there. But yeah, that's the best I've got. There's definitely some good compost spreaders and stuff out there though. Let's see. At Harlem Custom Microgreens asks, question, you briefly mentioned being careful what you followed behind a buckwheat cover crop in the video, but you didn't expand on it. Could you now, please? Let's see. What did careful what we followed a buckwheat cover crop with. I wonder what I was talking about. My thing with cover crop, okay, so let me just talk about buckwheat as a cover crop. Good phosphorus addition. It mobilizes phosphorus really well. It's a great ground cover, really good for it's very, very fast. It's really good for beneficials, flowers in like 21 days or 25 days or something. And easy to get rid of. Just mow it. It's gone. And it just turns to, it's tender green. It's gone. Doesn't add a lot of soil organic matter or anything like that, but it's good for the beneficials. It's good for, just for the soil, and it's good for blocking out weeds and that sort of thing. I don't know that there's anything I would be particularly nervous about planting after buckwheat. Unless maybe at some point I came across something and I was kind of toying with that idea of like whether or not I should plant something specific after buckwheat, but it doesn't really share any crop families, so I don't see any concern there. I don't plant it with other cover crops though. Maybe I could have been talking about that. I will occasionally plant, let's say, mung beans or like field peas or what's another one? Any of those like sort of faster legumes. And then like a week later, I'll plant the buckwheat just so that the buckwheat's not outrunning it, right? It's really, really good at outcompeting weeds, and therefore it's going to be really good at outcompeting the other crops that you want. So you can't, like, I see these cover crop mixes that have buckwheat in them, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? There's almost no value in it unless you just put a little bit. But even then, it's going to go to seed before most of the stuff that you want to grow has taken over. So like, it just becomes a weed issue. So for me, I never put buckwheat with anything else unless I'm going to sow it afterward. So yeah, I think that would be the only thing I'd add to the buckwheat question, but that's a good question. At Wesley Keller asks, Clean Slate Farm, Northeast Penna, is that Pennsylvania or Penna? Penna? Does anyone know of a compost that ensures a company that ensures high tunnels? You don't have any companies there that ensure high tunnels. Some companies, I like the farm bureaus and that sort of thing, like you can call around and ask them. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them may want to inspect it first and just decide whether or not it's worth their liability. But yeah, if anybody has any help for this person, that would be helpful. But I think I usually just suggest calling some companies and just saying, hey, I have these big greenhouses, these big high tunnels. Would you be willing to insure them, and what would it cost? Because some of them may charge you a pretty penny for that. And I don't know if there's any other alternative options. But yeah, good question. At Delights of the Earth asks, we are a small home garden and have our seeds in a binder. As we expand our garden, can you suggest better ways to catalog and store seeds? So we just have like little, almost like Tupperware totes that we keep in our walk-in. And we also have a couple big totes for like the bigger selections of seeds, the cover crops and that sort of stuff. But we keep all that in the walk-in. It's good because they keep them cold. You do want to keep them out of moisture, right? Like moisture more than temperature is going to harm your seed germination rates. So we keep those in the walk-in, and then we keep them in those enclosed sort of Tupperwares because you don't want pests getting in there. Not that pests get into our walk-in, it's pretty well sealed, but in the off chance that they find their way in there, because they are pretty clever things, we don't want them eating all of our seeds. So make sure that it's like clear, that it's contained and then safe from moisture and rodents. And yeah, you could do that a lot of different ways. I've seen people keep them in filing cabinets and stuff, but for me, that's like, I don't know, risky with the rodents. I find that just something sealed is generally the best way to do that. And like I said, keep it out of the light though too. You don't want it to get too hot. But again, moisture is more important than temperature, just for seed germination rates. At MJ asks, starting a farm stand a few hours south of you in Gainesboro, Tennessee. Cool. Still need to order some seeds. Which early girl varieties of tomatoes we should try to buy, and from which vendor? I mean, Early Girl is like a specific one, and they also have, there's another one, New Girl. There's another one that that's relatively recent. My favorite, just sort of like red slicer that we've grown is Jetstar. We get that from Fedco. Slam. Love that tomato. One of the best. And I've tried so many different, I've tried all the different red tomatoes. I feel like at this point, I've tried basically every just whatever red slicer. And but yeah, Jetstar has been my jam for 16 years. So that's the one. I mean, that would be if anybody's going to grow a new tomato they haven't maybe tried yet, and that's the only place I can get it, I think, is Fedco. But if you order, there are a couple other places that sell it, but I've ordered it from a couple other places just in a pinch, like I needed it like that week. And Fedco, God love them, they are a little slow, but if you order it from somewhere else, be careful, because it can come treated. I got it treated once, and I was like, well, there goes $5. I'm just gonna throw it in the trash can, I guess. So yeah, I would suggest trying to find an untreated version of it. But Jetstar, that's my jam. That's one of my favorite tomatoes. Take a sip here real quick. At Rachel Phillips asks, what seeds are good to start in 9B right now? What are you starting right now? Yeah, we talked a little bit about this earlier. In 9B, you're probably looking at your tomatoes, your peppers, probably not quite cucumbers yet, but maybe, just depending on how cold your average like March and April temperatures are. It depends on how much ground you have ready too. Like, you don't want to start anything that's going to be that fast if you're not ready to plant it. 9B, you're probably also like, you're probably past like tomato and pepper starting season, but yeah, you could still do it, obviously. And like I said, cucumbers, yeah, you're probably good to go on there. You're probably, starting some of your mid to late spring stuff. So beets and carrots, and your onions should have been started already, I would think. But onions are a little harder to grow as you get further south, and south from us. I'm not sure which 9B you're in. If you're at a higher latitude, obviously onions are still good to go. And then all the things, you're probably like full on spring in 9B at this point, or at least close to it. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I was in 9B right now. Every time I look outside, I get a little bit depressed. At MJ asks, how about 6 pounds of purple sweet potatoes and are sprouting now? Have about 6 pounds of purple sweet potatoes and are sprouting now. Want to turn them into as many slips as possible under grow lights. Any advice? Well, you can cut those slips off and they'll just keep slipping, like you can cut those slips off and you can pot them up. You can put them in, like a tray of soil, and then just let those keep growing, and then you'll pull those later, and then just let your potatoes keep slipping. Yeah, I mean, depends on, like it's going to be a little bit hard to keep them, depending on where you are. It's going to be a little hard to keep them going for that long. 9B also, sweet potatoes, you're probably getting ready to start there. Start the sort of slipping process if you were doing those. I mean, that's kind of where my brain goes. That would be it. I'd put them in like a soil mix of some sort. Let's see I need to probably let me stop and do an ad read real quick. Sorry, y'all. Got to make sure that we stay in business, right? So that we can keep doing these things. Let's go to Tend. Farming is hard. Running it shouldn't be. Meet Tend, the purpose-built platform built by farmers for farmers. Plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No more spreadsheets, no more guesswork, just smart, seamless workflows. Tend adapts to your farm, 1 acre or 100. Real-time inventory, sales, labor tracking, traceability, and analytics all in one place. You grow food, flowers, fruit, and more. Tend helps you grow smarter. Start free today at tend.com. That's TEND.com. Shouts to them for their support. All right, let's get back to your questions here. Snowflake Farm. What's up, Brian, right? Brian? Looking for farm conferences within driving distance of East Tennessee, which include West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Western North Carolina. Any recommendations? I think the Organic Grower School is coming up, right, in March in Western North Carolina. That's a good one. Let me think. What else is coming up? I'm OEFFA up in Ohio, I think, is coming up soon. That one's not super far for you. It's a little bit far. I think is the Virginia Biological, is that one already gone? I feel like that one's in January. If that one's not already gone, that's always a good one. And then the Tennessee Food Summit, I think, is probably coming up. Maybe I feel like that one's like closer to spring. Those are the ones that come to mind. I don't know that I have anyone's other immediate ones. There's probably at least one more in Tennessee. But yeah, those are cool. Those are all fun. At DJ Clark, Kentucky, maybe Kent asks, or Clarky Kent. Oh, Clarky Kent. I get it. I see what DJ Clarky Kent. I get it. Well done. They ask, moving to 5A in a month, what steps should I take prior to picking a growing spot? Soil test definitely, maybe hire an agronomist. I'm also going to be near a septic tank. If I do it no-till, is that okay? Going to be near a septic tank. Okay, so you need to, first probably make sure that septic tank is not leaking or anything. There are some issues sometimes if you're going to be certifying organic with your proximity to septic tanks, or at least to like septic fields. You are, let's see, what steps should I take prior to growing on that plot? You should make sure that you're not dealing with a septic field. What do they call those? Drainage fields. Also, I would maybe, just in general, and when you're buying a house, you probably should check to make sure the the septic tank is up to par. So that's always important. And then watch our From Pasture to Production video, because that's going to give you the best, this is how I would do it. I would look at the soil organic matter. I'd look at my soil test. I'd talk to the agronomist. I would decide whether or not I needed to till first. If I didn't, here are the steps I would take. If I did, here are the steps I would take. That is going to give you sort of the start to finish thing. And we did that a couple years ago, and I haven't watched it in a little while, but I doubt I would change much. I mean, honestly, when I look at my book and stuff, people ask me if I'm going to write another book, and I'm like, it's kind of says everything I would say. I don't know that I would add a ton. I try and add a ton here on the podcast, but I don't know that I would add a ton to what I've already said. So any of those, that's where I would just start with that, those sort of things like you're talking about. Maybe even, just double check that septic tank to make sure that's good to go. Because you also don't, if it's near a septic tank, you don't want to put your gardens in the way of that septic tank in case something happens and somebody needs to come fix it and they're driving heavy machinery through your gardens. I don't know, just think about those little things maybe. And then, just accessibility, all the stuff. You need to make sure it's accessible. You need to make sure that you've, thinking about deer and all the elements that you'll have to manage. All right. It's a good question. Best of luck on that. At Leisha M. Katir. I nail these every time. From 6B, New Jersey, 18 to 20 inches of snow. That's fun. Below freezing for 2 to 3 weeks. I don't have experience doing early planting, but I'm trying. I started onion and spinach and winter lettuce. Any tips on getting things started outside. You will definitely have to wait for the snow to melt, just like us, unfortunately. Really use your greenhouse like your garden. Like that, I always think of a greenhouse like being on deck in baseball, right? Like it's kind of, you're getting everything sort of loaded and ready, and then as soon as you have that opportunity to start planting, then you can start planting. Don't overdo it though. Like don't start more stuff than you could possibly plant in a short amount of time, because your windows, especially there in New Jersey, may be kind of like we're in the same growing region, but you probably get more snow than we do. Like we're a 6B as well, but like, you want to be ready, and just so as soon as it dries up and you can see the soil or see the compost mulch or whatever you're planting into, again, that you're just ready to go. You can just pop stuff out there and you can do that pretty quick. Just depends on your soil prep and all those things, of course. But I always think of the greenhouse as like a little miniature garden. Like it's just like it's like a garden that grows the stuff until the garden is empty or ready or, prepped. And then I can just put it out there. I think those are some good options. At Carl Boss asks, morning, Jesse. Not sure if you or anyone in the chat would have any insight, but do you have any tips for transitioning from working full-time to working full-time? Whew, that's a big question. My biggest tip would be to take it slow. Farming full-time is really about, having a good plan in place, having some good, like proven, there's a term I'm looking for, it's not coming to me, but basically just like proof of concept, like that you can do it, that you can grow food, that you can sell it professionally, you've seen your budget, you think you can hit it. What I don't like seeing is when people are like, and what I refuse to do is tell people to like quit your job and just go farming. No, it's a terrible idea. Get your capital together, treat it like any other business, get your business plan, get everything set up, get some experience, get that proof of concept, do your market research, all that stuff. And if you have a full-time job to help complement that, to help keep you, afloat, and then you can just kind of do this work on the weekends or in your evenings, then that's the way to go to me. Don't just drop everything and go farming, because it's a really hard way to do it. And it's a good way to just end up back at a full-time job. Or if you can slowly reduce from full-time to part-time, or even maybe switch jobs and get a part-time job while you transition. I think that's it. This is a very difficult business to get into in terms of just like, it's physical. It's a lot of work. The beginning can be, take a long time anyway. It can take a full year to get a farm set up. So just take your time, I think would be kind of the first step there. I'm not going to be able to get to all these questions. I got about 10 more minutes. So I'm going to take a few that we haven't find some people I haven't had questions from yet. At Tom Jensen asks, what do you think of mixing worm castings in your potting mix? I think it's great if you can do it. If you've got enough vermicompost to kind of mix with your potting soil and you trust the vermicompost, like it's, your own or whatever, and there's not like weed seeds or whatever in it, absolutely. I wouldn't overdo it, but, up to like 40%, I think is what's generally recommended. So, and most of us probably don't have 40% of our potting mix in vermicompost volume, but sure, absolutely, I'm all for it. At Trill000 asks, do you find red kale easier to grow, much more pest-free in your experience? That's a good question. Red kale more pest-free? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know that it's more pest-free. It is certainly easier to see caterpillars on your red stuff, red brassicas, than it is your green ones. I would say no, not necessarily. I think that red kale is really tasty. I love red kales. I think it can be a little harder. We find it's a little harder to sell. Like people just expect green kale. But flavor-wise, I love it. It's got some good antioxidants in there. That's where that red stuff comes from. I'm good for it. I don't know that it's going to be any better necessarily. Tom in the USA asks, do you know of any studies comparing fertilization of seedlings just after emergence versus with true leaves develop? Extension advice varies between the two. I don't offhand. One of the things that I've found to be really effective for seedling production, though, just in little like at-home trials, is priming the seed. I've talked about that before. Not necessarily like a fertilization recommendation, but more of a microbial recommendation. And it also just jump starts your seed. It just gets them to germinate faster. So I don't know that I like fertilizing at seedling stages. I'd rather, in my experience. Like let those seedlings kind of establish themselves. They come with a lot of fertility already, right? The parents have like already loaded up their progeny with what they need to at least get started. And so I usually wait for them to grow a little bit before I add any sort of fish emulsion or whatever. And honestly, I rarely do any sort of side dressing inside of the greenhouse. Usually what I'll do is if it's like tomatoes or something, I'll pot them up. If it's like broccoli or something that's slow, or onions that are kind of slow, then I will add a little fish hydrolysate. But for the most part, like I'm not adding a lot of fertility either way. It depends on how long they're going to be in there. A lot of people who grow like plant starts for market and want to like reduce the amount of soil mix or whatever that they use, they will use like fish hydrolysate, but that's usually quite a bit after that the plants have started, have germinated. Let's see, let's say two more. At Glenn Bronner asks, can you let us know where you get your Golden Nugget sweet potato slips, please? We grow them. I don't know that I'm going to have enough to sell. I always think I'm going to have enough to sell, but we ate our sweet potatoes up pretty fast this year. I didn't grow a big patch last year, which I kind of regret. I mean, we grew like a few beds. We sold way more than I should have. And so now I'm like kind of just hoarding them. But we grow our own. We just grow our Golden Nugget sweet potatoes. But what I would do is just, honestly, if you want, you could probably get them through either Jeff Poppin down there at the Barefoot Farmer. You can find his info online. Jeff Poppin's a good friend of mine. He probably has a bunch, and he would just sell you the sweet potatoes, and then you start your own slips. Or Eric and Cher at Bug Tussle Farm. They're our mentors. You could probably also contact them. They probably have some sweet potatoes they'd sell you for slips. Just buy the sweet potatoes and then start your own slips. That's the easiest way to do it. Yeah. And then let's see. This is a good one. At Delights of the Earth asks, I don't think I've heard an update on your potato starts trials. How did that go? Well, I think the ultimate reality with the potato starts trials is that they're going to grow small potatoes every time. I haven't seen anything that's like, I don't know, where I'm kind of landing on it is it would be good for growing disease-free potato slips of my own to sort of spread out a crop. Like I grew some that now I'm going to use those potatoes to plant this year, but I'm actually going to plant the potatoes that I grew from the slip. So basically I grew a disease-free potato that's a small one, and then I'm going to plant that for a bigger potato. Does that make sense? So I'm not sure that you can take those slips and really produce sizable enough potatoes to make it. But the potatoes look great. I just can't get them big enough to make sense. Like maybe you could plant them really, really densely and get a nice new potato. And just for anyone that's like, what is he talking about? Growing potatoes like I grow sweet potato slips, if that makes sense. So like, basically like I do, so the growing regular potatoes, like I grow the sweet potato. So I grow the slip off the regular potato, like I do the sweet potatoes. I like germinate them and grow like a little plant, and then I plant that plant. So I was kind of doing that with the potatoes. And it like works, but it just doesn't produce enough. And I think part of that is just that it doesn't have all that energy that all of these sort of commercialized potatoes require to really, really produce. Maybe if you put a little bit more compost in it, like I'm not giving up on it. I'm still going to try it again this year. I've got some different things I want to tinker with, like try a little bit more fertility, try to grow some from slips that I grew from slips last year. So basically trying to see if I can encourage them to produce more by just breeding them that way. I don't know. I'm just playing. I like playing. I think farming should be fun. I think you should be able to go on your whims. And then I also think you have to make a living. So like, farming is both my hobby and my job. So it's nice when it's that way. You enjoy doing it and you get to play around a little bit. You just got to be careful, overdoing it. But yeah, anyway, I think, let me see, I've got one more ad read. Maybe I'll do one more ad read and then I'll do one more question and then we'll call it a day. How's that? Last ad read will be from our friends over there at Certified Naturally Grown. Certified Naturally Grown is the grassroots certification built by farmers for farmers. C&G gives local growers like you recognition for the commitment of producing food without synthetic chemicals by assuring customers that your practices are verified. C&G's peer review inspection model keeps the cost of certification low while creating opportunities for knowledge sharing amongst a strong supportive network of like-minded farmers. Apply today to be certified before the season ramps up. Applications processed within 7 days. Learn more at naturallygrown.org. Huge thanks to them for that. All right, one more question, then we'll bounce. Let's see. I think I've answered most of these. Let's see. Not sure if I think let me just take this last one then. Manor Gates Market Garden says, do you ever wonder if those mucusy seeds, basil as an example, would help to germinate a non-mucusy seed, example, tomato, if planted together? If I were bored on the way to Mars, I'd do an experiment. No, I don't know. I mean, sometimes they can inhibit, excuse me. Sometimes certain plants can inhibit other plants from germinating, and sometimes they can encourage it. That stuff gets so complicated because it has a lot to do with what microbial life is in the soil, not just what the plant is, what the conditions are, what the temperature is, what all those things. So I don't know. That's not one that I feel confident in saying one way or the other. I do think that the seeds often have a lot of nutrients that other seeds can would appreciate. So this is why we see like bean meal being a good side dressing, or what's another seed, like peanuts, for instance. These are good fertilizers. So in a situation where maybe you have a bunch of excess seed, cooking it or germinating it or sprouting it, sort of like, maybe like you would with beer, right? Sprouting it and then grinding it and then using that as a soil for fertilizer, that could be an option. I have a bunch of old popcorn seed that we just like never used and just wasn't very good pop. Like I tried all these different varieties. Some of them weren't very good. So anyway, I have all this old popcorn seed and I thought it would be cool to bring it inside, toast it or germinate it, toast it like I would for beer, and then grind it up or just whatever, like basically you kill the germ and then just throw it in the soil and let it decompose and be a fertilizer. I thought that would be kind of a good idea for the future. But anyway, I think that's good. We're going to call it a day. I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming out here. I really appreciate Mike for hanging on and getting me all those questions. Everybody give Mike a big shout outs in the comments there. He's such a huge help here. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3 also, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this live, you can give us a super thanks to say thank you. That stuff helps us a lot. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Like this video, that is huge. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Obviously, Mike for the production help and editing and hanging out here. And my wife, Hannah, for absolutely everything in the world. Also, my kids are outside and I hope they're not getting into too much trouble. We'll find out. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Usually, not today. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-till-growers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of February, you usually get a shout on the show. We'll do those tomorrow. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. We'll see you Thursday. We'll have fun. Bye.